All right, today the topic is motion versus action. And the topic of motion versus action is subtle. They sound the same. And for a period of time, they may even look the same, but they're quite different. One gets things done, while the other one makes us feel and look like we're on the road to accomplishment. And one delays criticism or failure, while the other one brings us success. And what's the difference between motion and action? Now, we've all heard of a man or a woman of action, right? And we've heard of movers and shakers. You know, we understand that those are the people who get things done. And so what's the difference between motion and action? Why is this topic even important? You know, what's the point of exposing the subtle difference between the two, between motion and action? Well, answer me this. Would you rather reach your goals or look like you're on the way to reaching that goal? You know, would you rather lose a few extra pounds or stay in that comfortable cycle of preparing to lose weight? Action. See, one is going to get you to that goal. Action's going to help you get to that goal, help you fulfill your calling on earth, help you lose that weight, land that account, get that dream job, or find your true love. You see, but the other, motion, is self-generated smoke and mirrors that help us feel good about ourselves while we put off the inevitable. Motion gives us time, but action gets us results. This sounds very simple, but the reason I'm talking about this is because it's something that I am presently working on to a greater degree. And, you know, it's a topic I heard in multiple conversations, people confusing activity with accomplishment, and it looks good and we're so used to it. And that's a lot of times why we don't reach our goals. It's not because we're lazy, because most people aren't that lazy. We've just been trained to spin our wheels or to look busy or to do something as opposed to doing nothing. And the point here today is don't just do something that's going to help you reach your goal. And anything that stops you from hitting that one point isn't worth the time. It's not worth doing, especially if you have a passion for something. See, motion is the process of changing a position. Motion is movement. It's a plan gets set into motion. Nothing wrong with motion. See, a man in motion will look busy, but a man in action is going to make that plan happen. See, action is the process of getting something done. So if you're tired of setting personal goals, but have trouble reaching them, this teaching just may help. I was thinking that it's easy to confuse activity with accomplishment, but no one ever confuses success with anything else. See, motion is action misunderstood. And there was a coach, John Wooden, who many of you have heard about. And like all great coaches, he knew that in order to be a champion, in order to truly be successful in any endeavor, that we must, quote, never mistake activity with accomplishment, end of quote. And this quote had been said by many people over the centuries. In fact, a few years before that, a writer named Ernest Hemingway said, quote, never mistake motion for action, end of quote. And then 150 years before Hemingway, a man named Benjamin Franklin said, quote, never confuse motion with action, end of quote. So this is not new thoughts. Every great thinker, every successful person analyzed themselves at some point and said, am I just going through the motions or am I getting somewhere? Am I going through the motions or do I have traction towards my ultimate goal? 2,600 years before the wise old Franklin penned that phrase, the wisest of the wise, King Solomon said, quote, "Seize life, eat bread with gusto, drink wine with a robust heart. Oh yes, God takes pleasure in your pleasure. Dress festively every morning." You see, don't skimp on colors and scarves. Relish life with the spouse you love each and every day of your precarious life. Each day is God's gift. It's all you get in exchange for the hard work of staying alive. See, make the most of each one. Never, whatever turns up, grab onto it. Do it. And heartily. This is your last and only chance at it. For there's neither work nor do thoughts to think in the company of the dead, where you're most certainly headed. And that was Ecclesiastes chapter 9, a portion from there. See, we all know that someday, that life is short and that someday it's going to be over for us. We've all lived long enough. Solomon basically said, live now and live with a flourish. You know, live in full color. Live out loud. And God truly enjoys it when we enjoy it. Another version says, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. Whatsoever your hand findeth to do it with thy might. You know, put as much energy as you can afford into accomplishing your task, and then add just a little bit more. Add just a little bit more. It always takes a little bit more work than we think we're going to have to put in to accomplish any goal. If things stay the same, if we keep doing things the same, what's going to happen? They'll stay the same. Franklin knew this. Hemingway knew this. Coach Wooden knew this. You know, Solomon knew it. Everybody knows it. God knows it, or it wouldn't be in the Bible. But we get stuck on that hamster wheel of busyness. You know, sprinkle a little dash of color on your goals and go get them. They should be colorful enough, wonderful enough for us to want to reach them. Or why are we doing it? Change your goal. If it's self-improvement, if it's family improvement, if it's financial improvement, who cares? It should be fun, should be good looking to us, should be colorful. As we step past our comfort zone, we step one step closer to our goal. Every single time. See, the goal of this teaching is to take us from the exhausting treadmill of perpetual motion to actual accomplishment. I think the difference between action and motion is the difference between successful people and almost successful people. See, the reason so many people fail to reach their goals is not because they're lazy, not because they're not doing things. It's usually because they confuse activity with accomplishment. If you're training for a race, like I am, I'm training for the Pikes Peak Marathon, well, I can't just run around the block, you know, unless I did it for 7 hours a day, you see. I mean, you have to train on the trails you're going to run. You don't have to, but it sure helps. You have to get used to the altitude. Somebody asked me today, are you going to go do altitude training? I thought, hadn't even thought about it this year, but I need to. Yeah, now I have a little more time. You see, but the cool thing about it is, now if I'm training for a sprint, it's foolish to train on trails. You know, if I'm a 100-yard dash guy. In fact, last year we ran into a bunch of Olympic athletes when my son was out here training for the marathon, and I remember one of the kids said his coach won't allow him to run on Pikes Peak. And I said, whatever for? That's good hard work. He said, it's a whole different set of muscles. It's a whole different set of muscles because he was a sprinter, Olympic hopeful, this kid. So it's funny. What you eat changes for what you're going to run. This doesn't really have anything to do with much of anything except that, but to just run, just to do busy work running, wouldn't have done me any good. So I try to run up to halfway up there once a week and then back. It's not that long. It's only like 14 or 15 miles, but it's, which isn't that long. There's people who do a lot more than that. That's what I'm saying. I'm just barely average, So enough on that. I think you get the idea. If you want a different job, then what are you doing to get ready for that job? Are you getting certifications? Are you getting the training you need? Are you talking to the right people? Or are you just looking on Craigslist? You open up the paper. What are we doing towards that? So don't confuse activity with accomplishment. Now, here's some examples of motion versus action. Ever heard, "I'd really like to lose weight and get in shape"? Some of us have said that. We buy the latest fad diet books. What's now the paleo? In a couple of weeks it won't be. And there's the Atkins diet back in the 80s or 90s. It changes all the time. The Mediterranean. That's an always favorite. Seems like everything sort of goes back to that anyway. And we buy those books. We talk to the person at work that seems the most fit. We talk to all our friends and family about our decision. We buy a juicer because we heard juicing's good. You see, but secretly, I don't want to look foolish in the gym. You see, or I don't want to be that fat guy that's 6 a.m. with sunglasses on is jogging around the block. You see, I don't want to be the only person that eats salad at that business lunch where everybody else has steaks. It's on the company. So I just go through the motions. Secretly, I never really have to get started because if I don't start, I can't fail. It sounds silly, but it usually comes back to that. How about, I really want to write a book. I write down 25 little ideas for my autobiography. And I start sorting through a few pictures. And I talk to the old folks in my family and cousins and nieces and nephews or whoever. And I tell them what I'm going to do. That's motion. That's motion. When I finally compiled 300 pages, all the pictures, everything's set, and I take it to the publisher, that's action. Everything else is motion. How about I really need to build my business? I join a networking group. I decide to hand out 10 business cards a day or make 10 business contacts every single day of the week. And after all, it's a numbers game. In the business I'm in, you talk to 10 people, usually you get one person to come in. It's a numbers game. I read blogs written by successful people in that industry. I get new business cards printed. I even build a website. It's all just motion until I put enough energy in to close that sale, to gain a new client, and then repeat the process again and again and again. See, I take action until I have all the money I need. That's action. Now, we all understand these things. See, a true entrepreneur, or a person who gets things done, if you don't like the word entrepreneur, a man or woman of action is relentless and at times restless. Because honestly, you're probably going to lose some sleep if you really want to reach your goals. Or you're going to have to start getting more sleep. See, they work, and a person like this will always work from their end goal backwards to the starting point. Or else you end up just going through the motions and you'll waste so much time. What is your end goal? Is it a marathon? Is it a new job? Is it a new love? Is it better health? What is it? To lose weight, to get in shape? Figure out what's the end goal? I want to be 5 pounds. No, I don't. But you get the point. I mean, whatever it is. Now, how am I going to get there? What are the obstacles? And then basically you start moving all the obstacles out and you're planning, or if it's an obstacle you can't surmount because of genetics or something, then you find a way around it. Some people have handicaps. It's sad, but it happens. What are you going to do? If we everything else will just be motion. Just going through the motions. Well, I can't because. There's always a because. Let me ask you, ladies, when is the best time to have a child? There isn't one. I didn't hear one of the comments, but maybe I shouldn't. They all say there isn't a best time. It's like saving money. When's the best time to start saving? Now. Well, I don't have any money. Well, that's why. Start saving. I don't have much. Don't save much then. Just get started. Do something. Want to lose weight? Have one healthy meal. Start with one. Start with a grape. Do something towards your goal. Don't have 2 bowls of ice cream at night. Cut down to 1. Whatever it is. If you know what it is and we keep doing the same thing, it's insanity, right? So this is action from the wisest man in the East. Find a way around those obstacles, but all the while keeping your goal in sight. And every successful person understands this. They don't waste time on inefficiency. I'll get to my point in a second, but I went to a chiropractor in my networking group the other day, not for an adjustment, just to see what they do. And they have this high-tech center that's bigger than this whole room, full of, it looks like exercise machines. And he doesn't do a lot of back cracking. He doesn't have just an adjustment table. What he does is he trains your body to adjust itself. And it's training the mind and the body. So he says, so you don't have to keep coming back. And so he has Olympians and stuff come to this guy, high school kids who need to get faster so they can go to some combines and make it into certain college programs, and they're all successful. Certain Olympians come. This one Olympian, Dan O'Brien, a few years back. He's been there, and he promotes this guy. And this guy's equipment. And the point is, it's retraining the mind and body to work like they're supposed to. And so he hooked me up and put me on these machines. And he said, "You walk wrong." And he said, "If you walk wrong, you're running wrong." And I said, "What do you mean?" And I still don't really know what he's talking about, But he said, "Look at your gait. Look how one of your legs moves." And I said, "Well, that must be why one of my feet hits the other one when I run." He said, "That's exactly why. I've noticed it for years." He said, "Something happened to you at some point where you got out of adjustment." He said, "You need to train, and now your mind thinks that this is normal." He said, "It's not normal, but you think it's normal. You're used to running this way, but you have to work a lot harder than people who don't do this." I thought, oh, that makes sense. You don't like to hear that because I want him to say, "You're the most healthy, efficient guy I've ever seen." He said he's never said that to anybody. Everybody needs improvement. And so the point of that is, if there's an obstacle, remove it. If you really want to excel in something, be it a sport, be it business, be it life, be it a relationship, it doesn't matter. What's the end goal? Now, how am I going to get there? What are the obstacles? What are the workarounds? And then you don't let anything stop you till you get what you want. So now, like I said before, action, and the wisest man in the East. Solomon was a man who found a way to get to the end goal. He became crazy rich, and the country of Israel became crazy rich because of this. And he was known across the world at that time as a wise man, yet he was still a man of the people, which we'll get to in a second here. That's not easy to be that way. And here's one example that spread across his country and around the known world at that time. And I'm in 1 Kings chapter 3. We're going to read 16 through 28 from the Voice. It's entertaining, so you don't have to read if you don't want. So, 16. 2 prostitutes visited Solomon asking for a judgment. I think about that. Just 2 girls who are known prostitutes going to the king of a country or the president. Most countries wouldn't even let somebody like that in. They'd let them deal with a lower level person. First woman, indicating to the other, "My lord, she and I live under the same roof. She was in the house when my child was born. 3 days after my child was born, she had her own child. She and I were alone in the house with our newborns. One night, her baby died because she lay on it during her sleep. She woke up, and after seeing her dead baby, she stole my baby out of my arms while I was sleeping and placed her dead baby in my arms. When I woke up early the next morning to feed my son, I found him dead. When I took a closer look at him, I saw that it was not the same child who came from my womb." Second woman, "She lies. My son is alive, and her son is dead." First woman, "She lies. Her son is dead, and my son is alive." Solomon, "This woman says, my son is alive and your son is dead. The other woman says, my son is alive and your son is dead. Bring me a sword." Receive the sword. Then he orders, "Cut the child in half and give each woman one of the halves." Shocking. The woman who was truly the mother of the living child was overcome with compassion and pleaded with the king, "Please, don't cut the child in half. Just give the whole child to her. Please do not kill him." Second woman, "Nonsense! The child will belong to neither of us. Cut him in half." Solomon, "The living child belongs to the first woman. Give her the boy and do not harm him. She is the true mother." When the news of the king's wise judgment spread throughout Israel, they all feared or respected him. They respected him because they perceived God's wisdom in his just judgment. See, it's interesting that as he acted, God showed him his answer. That's motion toward a goal. He wanted to resolve that as a good judge, and he did. What about you and your business? You want to do something. You need to make more money. You need to land an account, whatever, and your weight loss. Don't you think God can show you? I'd be willing to bet he already does, but we're just so used to going through the motions. The hamster wheel. You see, accomplishment is action that reached maturity. It's action that reached maturity. You know, I've used this example multiple times, but it'll fit well here. You know, when I lived in another state, I was into traditional archery. And I wanted to see how fast my arrows came out of the bow, because they were heavy and slow. That's okay. My friend who is a rifleman, a shootist, he set up his chronograph that he could measure the speed of his bullet, so he'd know what load to put in there. And so he said I could shoot my arrow through there. So I set my target about 30, 40 yards down, and I pulled back and I released, and I hit his machine with my arrow, first shot, and it exploded. And he just bought the thing. And I mean, I didn't even know what to say. It wasn't that it was that expensive, but I did a really stupid thing. And he came up, put his arm around me. He said, "Mark, you know what you did?" I said, "Yeah, I wrecked your machine." He said, "No." He said, "You took your eye off the target right as you released and you looked at the machine." He paused, and then he said, "We hit what we look at." And I thought, and it's been a life lesson that I've carried with me for a long time. We hit what we look at. What's your ultimate goal? I changed my goal from the target to his machine at the last minute, and I hit it. So I was successful. You hit what you look at. Solomon wanted an answer, and he got it. He hit what he looked at. You want weight loss, you got to keep your eye on that goal. And then every movement's got to work toward that. See, the topic here is not the difference between action and inaction. Those are both easy to spot. It's far more difficult to detect the difference between motion and action. And that's why if you start watching people, especially if you're in a business office, and you hear the salespeople talk. Yeah, the boss says, "Well, how's it going? How are sales?" "Well, we're handing out a lot of cards. We're meeting a lot of people. We're making a lot of contacts. We're doing this. We're doing that. We made new brochures. We've done this." And he goes, "Yeah, but have you created any business?" "No, but we're doing this, sir. We're doing this. No, hold on. What are the numbers?" "No, but sir, we're working on it. We're heading in that direction." Stop it. What are you doing to produce income? If you're a contractor, somebody goes, "Well, I'm getting to it. I'll be at the house tomorrow." You don't want to hear, "I'll be, I will, I could, someday." You want to just get to the house and do what you said you're going to do. We got to hold ourselves accountable like that. If you want to lose weight, then don't go to the refrigerator to buy ice cream. My wife has it figured out. She just doesn't buy any goodies for the house. There's none. If I want something, I'm going to have a grape, or a strawberry, I mean, it's the only way that works for me, because if it's in the house, I am going to find it, no matter where she finds it, So, but now we're going to talk about action. The wisest man in the West. We talked about the wisest man in the East. I'm going to mention a guy you've heard of who is considered one of the smartest men ever in the Americas. And he was a wise and effective person who helped change a nation, just like Solomon did. And his name was Benjamin Franklin. And he was far more than the portly, bespeckled face on a $100 bill. He helped what we know as the United States to become a sovereign nation. Now, that's just a crazy thought. Imagine being part of another country and saying, "We're going to secede from this country." That's quite a thought. Now, I was talking about Franklin and his many accomplishments, and somebody recently told me, "Well, he was able to do all these things that he did because he was rich. And he had plenty of time to think, not like us." And so I thought, well, let me just research this a little bit, because was he just rich and had all that time to think, like a lot of thinkers? Did he have patrons taking care of him? Or did he start off differently? Well, let's see here. See, Franklin was one of 17 children, born in a very poor household. But he was instrumental in changing the world. If he changed this into what's called the United States, he surely changed the world. And not only is he called one of the founding fathers of our country, but he was an inventor, a publisher, a diplomat, a Renaissance man, if you will. He invented bifocal glasses. Bifocal glasses. Because he couldn't see far and he couldn't see near. So he said, I'm going to put them together instead of all the people changing glasses. You see, the lightning rod, instead of houses just kept burning down from lightning. He thought it through. He figured it out. The efficient Franklin stove. He saw people cutting so much wood and burning in their fireplaces trying to cook. So he designed a stove that would be efficient so that people could use less wood and have more heat. He started the first public library. He organized firefighting in Philadelphia. He helped found a university. He designed the first flexible catheter because his brother had kidney stones. Imagine letting your brother do this. Well, let's try this out, Buck, you know. He designed the first flexible catheter. It's crazy. He crossed the Atlantic 8 times on a boat. He's the one who made popular the whole Gulf Stream currents. The English were still coming straight across. It would take them weeks longer, and they didn't believe. People knew about the Gulf Stream, but some people were just stubborn. They didn't want to do it. They thought the straight route was the best course, but it isn't, because you're going against the wind, going against the waves. So he's the one who popularized the Gulf Stream theory. He was a voracious reader, yet his schooling ended at 10 years old, and he only had 2 years of school. 2 years! 2 years of formal education, and he was crazy smart, this guy. Franklin believed, he also, with his inventions, he believed in giving people, he believed in giving back to people who didn't even give to him. Today we call it paying forward. But he was a big proponent of this. And so he never did a patent on any of his inventions. He just let people use them. Because he wanted it for the betterment of mankind. He wanted to better the United States, or the colonies, or whatever they were called then. He wanted an easier life for everybody else. So he just gave his inventions away. He became rich by writing Poor Richard's Almanac and starting a different newspaper. So this is a guy with basically no education who did something. And we all hear stories like that, but what about us? What will it take for us to get to the next level? You got to want to get to the next level. Have that goal, that clear-cut, picture of what you want. Figure out what obstacles. Was there obstacles for him? He went to Europe to try to petition to get France to help arm the colonies. And so. I mean, how do you convince a country to give your country weapons to take over so that another country, you can break away from them? That was unheard of stuff. He petitioned even to England to stop certain taxes. I mean, he went right into the teeth of the lion, this guy. So he was bold, but he decided to be bold. He trained himself to be bold. He trained himself to be wise. You can train yourself to excel in your business too, to move up. How far do you want to go? It's up to you. Totally up to you within your time frame. See, the reason Franklin was so successful was because he saw a project through to completion. I think Einstein said, "I'm not smarter than other people. I just stick with problems longer." I'm sure he was pretty smart too, but I stick with problems longer. He never confused motion with action, this Franklin. The same's going to work for us. Are you ready and willing to reinvest in yourself? To reinvest in your self-worth if you were raised to think of yourself as worth less. You see, Franklin never allowed his past or present to deter him from his desired future. So here's a few action lessons of Franklin. And these are all quotes that he did. And this will help you see inside his head. These are things that he wrote over the years. So turn movement into action. Here we go. He said, quote, "All mankind is divided into three classes. Those that are immovable, those that are movable, and those that move." End of quote. Now, I think movement will turn into action if the goal is clear enough. Can you taste it? Can you see it? Do you smell it? Do you want it? Or just like the hamster wheel? Franklin said, quote, "Never confuse motion with action," which we read earlier. And this is the point of this teaching. Benjamin mastered the art of action, and it's an art. An art is a practiced form. You have to make yourself great at action. It's not easy because we're trained to just be busy. Busy work. James 1:22-24 from the Message says, "Don't fool yourself into thinking that you're a listener when you're anything but, letting the word go in one ear and out the other. Act on what you hear. Those who hear and don't act are like those who glance in the mirror, walk away, and 2 minutes later have no idea who they are or what they look like." Now remember, mirrors in those days were usually a little thing like this. Nobody until like the 14th century knew what they looked like. Except for maybe their eye. Maybe a rippled reflection in the water, but nobody knew what they looked like. And so that's what this is saying. You're going to forget about it 2 minutes later. How do you really see yourself? Don't fool yourself into thinking you're a listener if you're not. It's just like looking in the mirror and forgetting. Franklin wrote, quote, "Well done is better than well said." And what would we say today? Talk is cheap, right? Talk is cheap. Talking about a goal won't bring it to completion. All the vision boards in the world won't help you if you don't take action on those visions. They're helpful, but it's just fluff. It's just motion, unless every step is moving you closer to that other goal. We've all done this. Some of you, I've known, you went to college as an adult. You graduated, you got a degree, then you got other certifications. You just keep moving and moving towards your goal. You plod along until you get what you want. It's not easy. Getting over fears or phobias, not easy. But you're doing it. It's exciting. People tell you you can't. You say, "I can. I will. I'm doing it." And you start walking in that direction. Here's another verse. "Dear friends, do you think you'll get anywhere in this if you learn all the right words but never do anything? Isn't it obvious that God talk without God acts is outrageous nonsense?" James 2:14-17. James, the half-brother of Jesus. Persistence, the next topic. Quote, "Energy and persistence conquer all things." End of quote. Energy and persistence conquer all things. You think he knew something about this? How much energy do you have? That's what it's going to take. It's going to take all your energy to reach your goal. How much do you have? That's what it's going to take. Persistence. Now, persistent energy. See, changing our current lifestyle can and will be exhausting. It's always hard to change. But we're going to find a reservoir of energy if we'll push ourselves past our self-imposed limits. Isaiah 40, we're going to read 28 through 31 from the Voice. Don't you know? Haven't you heard? The eternal, the everlasting God, the creator of the whole world, never gets tired or weary. His wisdom is beyond understanding. God strengthens the weary and gives vitality to those worn down by age and care. Young people will get tired. Strapping young men will stumble and fall. But those who trust in the Eternal One will regain their strength. They will soar on wings as eagles. They will run, never winded, never weary. They will walk, never tired, never faint. See, Ben also said, quote, diligence is the mother of good luck. End of quote. Diligence is the mother of good luck. See, all successful people on earth and throughout history are considered to be lucky. See, successful people make their luck. You can too. See, be willing to change is the next one. Quote, when you're finished changing, you're finished. End of quote. When you're finished changing, you're finished. See, change is hard. If it wasn't, everyone would do it. I once heard that the only ones who like change are those with dirty diapers. You know, it's funny. I had a boss that used to say that, but it's really not true, because change is good. See, change is necessary. If we want to change anything, we have to change something. You have to change to change. Romans 12:2 from the Voice. Do not allow this world to mold you into its own image. Instead, be transformed from the inside out by renewing your mind. As a result, you'll be able to discern what God wills and whatever God finds good, pleasing, and complete. Like I say almost every week, if all our needs already been supplied, if it's already out there, what is stopping us from finding it? Well, each week I bring up a different topic. This week it's just going through the motions. It's smart action is what helps us get there. What is it that stops us? You see, that renewed mind, whatever that is, putting those new thoughts in our mind like we shared the other day, we're going to be able to tell what God really wants us to find. The good, the pleasing, and the complete. Like we read in Ecclesiastes. God wants us to flourish. He's pleased when we're pleased. All he wants is for us to be happy and prosperous and enjoy our wonderful life in the short time that we're here. But we can't just go through the motions. Change is good. Now the next one, don't procrastinate. You knew this would come up with Franklin. Quote, never leave that till tomorrow, which you can do today. End of quote. Never leave that till tomorrow, which you can do today. You see, another famous quote by Franklin. Now here's one from Luke chapter 12, 35 through 36 from the Voice. It says, I'm not just talking theory. There is urgency in all this. If you're apathetic and complacent, then you'll miss the moment of opportunity. You should be wide awake and on your toes, like the servants who are waiting for their master to return from a big wedding reception. They'll have their shoes on and their lamps lit so they can open the door for him as soon as he arrives. Welcome. That's how our life should be. We should just be ready for the blessing and ready to bless. Franklin also said, quote, to succeed, jump as quickly at opportunities as you do at conclusions. To succeed, jump as quickly at opportunities as you do at conclusions. The Roman poet Horace said, "Carpe diem," translated, seize the day. Seize your day. Make the best use of your day. Seize the day. When the door opens, go in. That's what he was trying to tell him here. When the door opens, go in. Seize the opportunities as fast as you possibly can. When you see one, go for it. When I had another business, it was all about sales, and I learned that if I jumped on a lead immediately, I usually got it. But if I waited a day, somebody else got it. It almost happened every time. So I learned, when I hear it, go get it. If I think about it, go bid it. If I think about it again, bid it again. There's times where I went to a building that I wanted to get, and I'd go there, I'd bid it. They go, "We don't need it. We already have somebody." I went back the next week, the next Friday, and bid it again. They go, "We told you last week you don't need it." I went back the next week because I knew it was mine. I wanted that account. It was right in the heart of where I worked. And plus, it'd be a lot of money every week. Third time I went, and they said, "Look, we keep telling you that we already have somebody." I said, "Look," finally I just said, "Look, here's what the other person is not doing." And I showed them, and they went, "When can you start?" If you think about it, go do it. Blessing somebody, like those notes that we send. You think about somebody, write them a note, send them a text, Facebook them, do something, because that's right when you need to do it. Because the next day, will you feel like writing that person? No. It's because that was a moment God was working in you to write. If we would just start doing that, how much better would other people's lives be? Then you're able to be somebody who God is working into, willing to do of His good pleasure. Getting a little more God in the world. Sure can't hurt anything, right? So recognize your opportunities. They're everywhere. Don't wait. Go get them. Seize the day. Carpe diem. Now be prepared. For those of you who are Boy Scouts, Boy Scout motto, and quote, "By failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail." We've all heard this. We didn't know it came from Benjamin Franklin. I'm sure it came from somebody else before him. But these are things that work. You know, have a well thought through plan. Begin with the end in mind and go make it happen. I'm going to change this country. Well, if you really wanted to, could you? We've seen people change it into their own image of what they wanted. And it may not be what we want, you know. But the point is, you know, what do you really want to do? If you really wanted to change the world, you would. If you really want to learn a language, what will you do? You'll learn a language. You ever heard somebody say, "Oh, I always wanted to learn to speak another language," or "I always wanted to learn how to play an instrument"? And then somebody will come up to him and say, "No, you didn't." And they'll say, "What?" Say, "No, if you had always wanted to, you would have done it." You see, if you want to do something, go do it. Want to learn a language? Go learn the language. Go to school. Get those, you know, DVDs or whatever, you know, on Rosetta Stone. Do something. So Luke chapter 6, 46 through 49 from the Message. "Why are you so polite with me, always saying, 'Yes, sir,' and 'That's right, sir,' but never doing a thing I tell you? These words I speak to you are not mere additions to your life, homeowners' improvements to your standard of living. They are foundational words, words to build a life on. If you work the words into your life, you're like a smart carpenter who dug deep and laid the foundation of his house on bedrock. When the river burst its banks and crashed against the house, nothing could shake it. It was built to last. But if you just use my words in Bible studies and don't work them into your life, you're like a dumb carpenter who built a house but skipped the foundation. When the swollen river came crashing in, it collapsed like a house of cards. It was a total loss. It's Luke 6:46 through 49. See, be prepared for abundance. You might just get it. Prepare your life for that abundance. Build the foundation. Build it strong. Because the end goal is you don't want it to get taken away. See, live now. This is the last one I'm going to say today. Quote, life's tragedy is that we get life's tragedy is that we get old too soon and wise too late. End of quote. Life's tragedy is that we get old too soon and wise too late. See, Benjamin was definitely into something here. He saw himself aging and he wanted to pass on this bit of wisdom. He's one of the only people that signed both the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Who has that privilege? I kept reading about him, and a lot of people think he was a president, but he never was a president. Some people call him President Frank. He was never a president. He was a president of Philadelphia, because they had stuff like that then, but he was never a president of the United States. He was a guy. He started with nothing. 2 years of education. That's it. Then he educated himself and he pushed himself and the doors opened. They sent him to England to learn printing. They sent him different places. People all over the place just to learn. And he'd apprentice himself with somebody and then change. And he kept moving. Then he started writing and reading. And then he got together with a group of friends. And they books were so expensive then, so they would share books. And then they realized, why don't we charge a little bit? And then we'll buy other books, and then other people come in. They would pull, and they started the library. He just would hap chance onto these things, but he thought it'd be for the better good of society. Organized firefighters in Philadelphia. Never had been done before. He did it. Bifocals, flexible catheters that you see on TV every time you watch Fox News. You see, So Ecclesiastes 12:1 and 2, last verse from the Message. Honor and enjoy your Creator while you're still young, before the years take their toll and your vigor wanes, before your vision dims and the world blurs, and the winter years keep you close by the fire. So the topic emotion as opposed to action is subtle. They sound the same. And for a period of time, they may even look the same, but they're different. One gets things done while the other makes us look or feel like we're on the road to accomplishment. One delays criticism or failure while the other brings us success through failure, through criticism. What's the difference between motion and action? Solomon knew the difference and changed Israel. Franklin knew the difference and changed the United States. And we know the difference, and we're going to change our lives. Action, not motion, will bring us closer to our amazing and necessary goals. God bless.